Thank you, everybody, and welcome to our community board meeting for the 15th of June. I'd just like to remind everybody in the room that this meeting is being recorded. So our first item is any apologies.
One from Murray.
Thank you. Thanks. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those?
I'll move that.
Thanks, Tony. Seconded Bill. All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? None carried. Now I'd like to open our public forum and just remind speakers that they do have 5 minutes to speak on a topic. And our first speaker will be Alistair Brickle. Welcome.
Can I take my spot?
Oh,
No.
no, please don't ask.
Well, when you're speaking, that's fine. As long as you're seated.
Yeah, I'll stay there.
There you go.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to speak first on behalf of the Kūaotunu Residents and Ratepayers Association, of which I'm a committee member, and it's to do with the Kūaotunu boat ramp. Now, we've got a submission here from Mr. Bill Muir, who is one of our ratepayers. And Bill, some of you probably all know Bill, he runs Kūaotunu Bay Lodge. Bill's been there for almost half a century, and looking down on the boat ramp and seeing what's going on. And so he's got a little summary here of the boat ramp, and you've got a diagram. Yep, okay, that's good, wonderful. I'll just read Bill's summary first, and then I have a little add on to that. Okay, so this is on the 15th of May by Bill. Kūaotunu boat ramp, a little bit of history. This ramp was developed and built in the early 1970s by two local residents, Mr. Archie Thompson and Mr. Ted Fugel, at no cost to the then Correspondence County Council. The facility has proven to be a major asset to Kūaotunu and the wider community. In 2000, TCDC, along with the Kūaotunu Ratepayers Association, drew up plans and upgraded the original ramp. The inner harbour was widened, marker posts and navigation markers were installed, the rock wall was protected and strengthened, and the concrete ramp was widened. Since then, TCD has added some rocks to the wall and cleaned out sand and weed. To understand the dynamics of boat ramps on the eastern side of the Correspondence, from Whangapō to Whitianga, the decision makers of TCD need to understand how these ramps work and where the money should be spent wisely. In the event of persistent easterlies, summer and autumn, the ramps at Whangapō and Matarangi are seldom used, as passage outside the Matarangi harbour requires exiting and entering over a dangerous bar. So those wanting to go fishing with safety will launch at Kūaotunu instead. On calm days, fishermen in Whitianga wanting to fish the Mercury Islands and north will also launch at the Kūaotunu ramp, saving about 2 hours of running time and fuel. TCDC has spent millions of dollars on the Whangapō and Matarangi boat ramps because of political and financial influences, not practical use, and these ramps are largely unused under easterly conditions. If the Council of TCDC were to use public money in a more practical way, there would be a sustainable program developed that would maintain and, over time, build up the protection wall at Kūaotunu. This would eventually become a decreasing work program and expenditure as the wall will become more stable and require less work. For example, if the wall is bulked up on the outside, the angular force of the waves against it will be decreased and the strength of the waves will decrease, thereby causing less damage, as for the diagram. So the diagram we've got at the bottom is a bit of a bird's eye view. That's looking north, the sea's there, you come into the boat ramp here, and this is where the harbour is, okay? And we're talking about this wall here, and to some extent that wall there. There's also various cross sections of the plan with the seaward on the right-hand side of these sections. There's a section through this wall, if you like, here. That wall there. Okay, so where are we? A bird's eye view of the wall will reveal a gap created within the leading edge. Now that gap is marked wash. If you can see there, washing. Okay. Okay. This came about after the wall was reinforced in 2000 by TCDC, and the immediate result was accumulation of weed and sand in the harbour with the solid wall acting as a groin. By opening up the wall, as in the diagram, this allowed the tide and current to wash out the sediment, keeping the harbour relatively clear. As far as I'm aware, the Kūaotunu community are not asking for expensive and sophisticated facilities, as in Whangapō, Matarangi, and Whitianga, such as floating pontoons and that sort of thing. We're just asking TCD to look at the Kūaotunu ramp as a Mercury Bay asset and have a long-term maintenance program in place that will require less money and work in the future with a better facility and outcome. So that's the end of Bill's letter. So basically what he's saying is it just needs a bit of consideration to have it on a long-term plan or whatever. So it's constantly maintained and those walls are built up. it needs large rock blocks. So the thought was, whenever these become available for construction projects or whatever, maybe they can be diverted from time to time to build up that rock wall and lessen the angle over time and thereby preserve the wall. And suitable rocks are not available all the time in the quarries, but we're wondering if maybe with the redevelopment of the marina, whether there might be some big rocks there that could perhaps be diverted to this process. I mean, the big cost is getting them on the trucks and unloading them. So that's the position of Bill Muir, and he came to our last committee meeting, and the Breakfast Committee totally supports what he's doing. We'd just like to see a long-term plan for council to preserve this asset. It'll be low cost, and over a number of years, it would totally change the shape of that outside groin and protect the asset for future generations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any questions, Alison?
Oh, there you got a comment of fact. There have not been millions spent on water park and Margaret.
Okay. I mean, it's a bit news letter.
I understand where it came from.
I think the point is there's been a lot of money spent there and not much spent on Kūaotunu. And there's a huge amount of use of Kūaotunu, especially when these are not spent on used.
Okay. Jeremy? No. All right. Edith?
No, I'm happy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I understand you have something else that you want to speak to us about?
Well, I'm also a committee member of the domain board.
Yes.
And to do with your item 2.3, do you want me to speak about that now, or should I hang around until it's been discussed later on?
If you wanted to listen to us have the conversation, you're very welcome to stay. But if you wanted to give some input into that paper, then you would need to give it now.
Okay, and this is, okay, so as I mentioned, I'm on the Kūaotunu Domain Board as well as the Ratepayers Association, and the project, as you're probably aware, is to resurface the tennis courts at Kūaotunu by the soccer field there. And it sounds like a simple project, but like so many of these things, there's more to it than you think at first. The, as a domain board member, we were involved in the 1980s there, establishing that tennis court facility. It was built with funds raised in the community for that facility, for a recreation slab, it was called at that time, multi-purpose recreation slab. So on there was concrete and tennis courts were built, eventually playground and things came along. So it now needs 30 years down the track, it now needs resurfacing. And the thought had been to try and preserve it as a valuable asset. And the initial communication was about having a tiger turf or synthetic grass on it. But if it's going to be a recreation slab, it needs to be suitable for wheeled things like roller skates or skateboards and things like that, and kids to run around on the bikes, because a lot of kids learn how to ride the bikes on that slab and do their own. So we've had a look at the tennis courts in Purangi that have been done, and they're either a synthetic surface, I'm sure the tiger turf or what it is, or asphalt. And both of those surfaces have signs saying no wheeled vehicles on them. So it would seem that the synthetic grass surface, tiger turf or whatever, may not actually be ideal for a recreation slab. So we would like to see it concreted over again. The initial thought was maybe we could do one tennis court in concrete, one tennis court in tiger turf, but then you get into issues, what do you do in the interface to be safe? How high do you have a wall? And it's probably not going to work. So we're thinking the ideal option would be a concrete slab, but then the issue comes up, how good is the process for adhering a new concrete slab or concrete slab? And there are a few cracks that have developed over the 30 years on it. Nothing terribly serious, but we don't ideally want them to propagate through to the new surface. Now, I'm not a concrete expert at all, but we are having ongoing discussions with concrete suppliers and technicians, and we have on the Ratepayers Committee a engineer with Becca Holdings. He's very good. He's on the committee now, so he's looking into this as well. So we feel we need more time to assess the options and get it done properly to everyone's satisfaction. There has been a bit of communication with the domain board and ratepayers, and I'm sort of sitting in the middle somewhere. But with this feeling is we want it as a recreation slab, multifunction recreation slab for community use. One option that was discussed was having an extra, doing tiger turf on the courts, and outside, familiar with where the Potomac court is, being there in the library, having a fairly large area there, concreted over for use for skateboards or wheeled whatever's. But that's going to cost extra money, and it's going to get in problems probably with the DOC and the EV consultation, I think, and push things down the track maybe a year or two. So we would like to see those funds, the 11,000 from the community board grant, just rolled over for another year until we get these technical issues sorted out and then proceed with it then. If it can't, if it's not possible, if you decide that's not possible, perhaps that money could be used to purchase basketball hoops or whatever, which we're going to need new ones for the new project when it eventually gets underway, things like that. But ideally, we'll see the whole thing rolled over another year if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions of Alistair? No. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Right, now, Paul, hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. So I'm sitting in my car in the middle of the Auckland domain, so apologies if the sound's not good. But look, I could be pretty quick here. There was a letter sent to you, as you know. I would just like to comment. The byline on the email was a little bit incorrect. We're not asking the community board to change the current district plan. That's a separate process which is underway with the Dark Sky Initiative. So that process is underway. What we're doing after some very constructive discussions with Ed Varley, he suggested that he would be quite happy to look at the current standards and see what the implications would be of modifying those, really to avoid doing things which may in the future with district plan change require a subsequent change. I mean, we talked about putting lights in now which may not be compliant in the future. And Ed said he would be very happy to have a look at that and do a study, and suggested that the best way to initiate that would be for us to write to the community board asking for you to submit a request for that study to be carried out. So really, that's, as you know, you've got the letter. I just wanted to come along and see if there was any particular questions to answer, and if you had anything, and if, you know, any questions about the broader Dark Sky Initiative. Obviously, happy to talk about that if it's of interest as well. But really, just to support the letter that's been submitted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions of Paul? None. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you stopping by.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else for public forum, either on the line or in the room? Nope. Okay. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive the public forum? Thanks, Tony. Seconded by Delhi. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
None carried. Any items not on the agenda? No. Any conflicts of interest? Okay, there being none, right. Item 1.5, which is our minutes for confirmation on page 3. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Delhi. Tony, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Opposed, none carried. That takes us to our correspondence report, which is item 2.1 on page 10.
So through the chair, I take that as read. There is the Kūaotunu Peninsula Biosphere Working Group letter.
Yes.
And obviously we've just heard Paul speak to that. So you may want to do something more specific around the stuff in that. I just wanted to also raise that we have 2 outgoing letters. One for Dr. Alistair McCormick, congratulating him on his Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. As we know, he has been very busy at Purangi as part of the Matarangi Ratepayers Association, and one of the other groups, Community Trust, Matarangi Community Trust. So, and we also have another letter of congratulations to Ian Carter for his Clean Service Medal for services to Fire and Emergency New Zealand and his community in Hahei. So those are signed and will be going out today.
Thanks, Heather. If I could just come back to the Dark Sky Initiative, is now the time to discuss?
I think that would be without Donna because it's in that letter, in that report.
Yeah, you can talk about it now because it's actually in the report.
Yeah.
The letters in the report is to be received, so you can actually discuss the letter.
Okay. All right. And so they're looking for support from the community board to give Eve the go ahead to get some investigation work underway?
That's how I understand it.
And how will we give that? Do we don't have to have a paper come back to the board?
You can make a resolution, possibly, but you can make a resolution to ask as part of this report to ask it for staff to investigate, not specifically Ed, but for
Yeah.
staff to investigate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's,
And note that we support the initiative because
yes,
Absolutely.
I would say this will go through a district plan review.
yeah,
That's for the dark sky, that will be separate, but this is
I
purely.
appreciate that's all lined up as part of the,
yeah, but us showing us that we're
Yeah.
supportive of the initiative
Absolutely.
and for staff to proceed
Yeah.
with the investigation. In line with-
because what they're asking for is 100% right. I mean, we shouldn't be putting lights up now.
Yeah,
That will be
exactly.
outside of what a district plan review will almost certainly come out with. We don't have to undo what we've done, so we can head it off.
Yes.
Even if we're outside of the policy now, I should say as well.
Just we'll get Donna to read back that resolution.
Haven't actually typed.
Once
it.
you've, once you've got it, Donna.
Yeah. Jeremy, did you? You good? You supportive of this?
Yep, yeah, 100%.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got 1 receives the report, 2 receives the attached and table documents, and 3, the board requests staff to investigate the initiative for a dark sky initiative. Is that right?
Not,
We could say, the board is supportive of this, the dark sky initiative and supports staff
Yep.
To undergo the investigation as per the letter.
it says for investigation of streetlight standards,
Yeah, well,
which is essentially what they're requesting.
all eyes on you, Donna. No pressure.
Okay,
No pressure.
so the board are supportive of the dark sky initiative and
Yep.
support staff to undergo the investigation of streetlight standards.
Yes.
I'll almost put very supportive.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Tony.
I would say this is a really major initiative and so yeah, for me, it's one of those things that we must get behind.
Okay, so we have that.
Very,
Yeah,
All right. So do we need a move and a second for that third resolution?
yeah, you need it for the whole lot.
Okay.
well, I'll
So
move it.
moved by Tony, seconded by.
I'll second.
Jeremy. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
All right.
Opposed? None. Carried. So that tidies that up. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Heather. And that takes us to item 2.2, which is, sorry, the request to repurpose the community grant funding for the Mercury Bay, Whitianga Bike Park.
I'm happy to move that.
Thank you, Tony. Seconded by, I'm happy to second that.
Oh, yeah, you go for it.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. And that takes us to 2.3, which is the request to retain funding, the community grant funding for the Kūaotunu Planning Board.
I'm very relaxed about that.
Okay, so you're happy to move that?
I'm happy to move that.
Seconded by,
I'm happy to see that.
thanks, Tony. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. So this takes us to item 3.1, which is our licence to occupy road reserve, Purangi Road at Ferry Landing. Ed, oh, there is Ed. Hello, welcome.
Good morning, all.
Hi, Ed.
If I can speak to the report, can I take the report as read?
Yes.
Please.
Yep.
Basically, we have a situation where the current owner of 1169 Purangi Road has been undertaking high levels of maintenance of the road reserve in front of their property, supporting their business at that location. They basically want to regularise that work through a licence to occupy, enabling them to carry on the good work that they're currently doing. I don't see any issues with it. it's an increased benefit to the community in that environment. And I support their request.
Okay,
So
thanks, Ed. Can I just ask a question? I
Yes,
mean,
certainly.
we very rarely see licensed to occupy, and we have two in one. Is that just a coincidence, or?
It's in this case, it's a coincidence, but I have to say historically, there's been a lot of, should we say, local agreements made that should have been covered by a license to occupy, and we are uncovering those as we go through. This is one of them. The next license to occupy is a planning issue that we're trying to resolve. But there will probably be an increased number of licenses to occupy coming through over the years. It's not a tidal wave. It's just as we find the problem, we deal with it.
Okay, cool. No, thank you. Jeremy, you've got a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. You know, how's this seem to have popped up at once? But I mean, for me, it has the potential to be a can of worms because essentially an encroachment in a sense. And certainly the next one, 3.2, are sort of I guess in parallel in some forms, but quite different in the other. But I mean, I imagine this is right across our district and community. I do wonder at what point does it really open the situation that we're going to be, I guess, inundated with these requests. And yeah, do we need? Can we just leave it as it is, or do we need, do we really need to do this license to occupy?
If I may, through the chair, legally, yes, we do need to have a license to occupy if people are doing any more than basic grass cutting on road reserve. Any planting, any excavation in the road reserve is technically beyond the normal scope of garden maintenance. This is ornamental planting. This is a little bit more than is normally expected by council for verge maintenance. And as we know about the situation, as it's been brought to our attention, the only process that we do have to deal with it is through a license to occupy, unless we sell the road reserve.
Right.
Right. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
my understanding, I don't know if I'm reading this right, Ed, and please correct me, is that these people have already had some kind of an agreement. So it's different to someone just illegally encroaching because they feel like it. These people have already had discussions or understandings or undertakings with council. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes. As I said earlier, this is a reference to the sort of local historical agreements that have been made and trying to regularise it under current legislation.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Tony had something to say, and did you have something that you drew? We'll do Tony first and then go back to you.
Yeah, my question is really a follow-up what Jeremy asked. And so where do we stand if at some future time we need to use the road reserve for council infrastructure and we have a licence to occupy over it?
Good question.
Cancelled at any time.
The termination of the, it's a 1 month notice by either party.
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
I did take that.
So there's no
6 months, isn't it?
other than
No,
we have
1
the
month.
planted.
Okay.
And certainly the efforts at Ferry Landing there adds visual and practical amenity. So
Going up there.
yeah, going up
Jeremy?
there.
Did you have?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'd just like to add. I mean, essentially, the letter of the law, it's an encroachment. I mean, you could use the example of Purangi properties encroaching on the beachfront. We sort of, I guess, in some ways dealt with that. This is sort of no different. I mean, the fact they're maintaining council property is fantastic, but I do feel that once we start to open this up, it's really going to potentially set a tone for the future. I mean, we've already using the Purangi example, we've sort of said to them it wasn't okay to encroach. In this case, we are saying it is. I mean, just trying to understand the difference.
I think the key is that there has been this agreement or arrangement negotiated previously, Jeremy, and that encroachment, you know, is by the letter of the law, something that is done without any discussion by landowners.
But where's this historical agreement though? There's no reference to it, is there? Or is there anything in writing?
Through the chair, we've been unable to find any written historical agreement, but from discussions among staff, this has been something that the parks team have been aware of for a number of years rather. They've discussed this with the landowner, and through that discussion, should we say, there's been a tacit verbal agreement which has been brought to our attention, and as I say, this is what we're trying to regularise at the moment.
Tony.
Yeah, mine was just a comment, Jeremy, with Purangi. I'll say part of the issue, well, there's two issues there. One was the planting wasn't in keeping with the plants required for coastal erosion. And the other one was giving people access to reserve land. Where for this case here, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing they're doing anything to do with coastal erosion. And there is no question about public access. So I think they're different for that reason.
And I certainly think, particularly the mowing and the weed control for the public access up to that site, it's extremely beneficial from a council perspective that the landowner is taking that on. I find it, Purangi and any other case, you kind of have to look at these case by case, and I don't think, I'm not sure that they can be a comparison.
I'm not sure. I mean, you can, I guess you can argue the Purangi one, but I think there were many examples of similar cases to this. And essentially, the way I said it, it's a straight encroachment.
But
I mean, I'm happy to support it. I very much support the fact that a private landowner is maintaining in council land. I mean, that's great for all concerned. But I am worried by actually formalising it, what it creates for the future.
Yes, but if there is an arrangement for use subject to, if there is an alternative use decided by council, then council will take over. Is that correct? Is there an agreement?
Yeah.
This allows us within
Yes.
1 month of a written
Yes.
notice
Yes.
to essentially
Right.
revoke this license to operate.
Whereas Purangi encroachment is quite different. As we've been out there, and it is landowners crossing the boundary and claiming that by doing a bit of work they have access. Sorry, that's rape and pillage.
And also excluding public.
Yes, because it is a public reserve. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay then, does anyone have any comments before we look at this in terms of the resolutions? And
I'm happy to move the resolution.
you're happy to move it to over
I'd
second?
be happy to second it.
Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
We have this.
Can I hang about if we need you again?
Yeah.
On 3.2, which is license to occupy road reserve at 7 Par Road in Hahei.
Slightly different little.
Very
fish,
different.
isn't it?
Fish.
Yeah.
This is where I imagine the debate will really find its
Yes.
feet. So over to you, Ed.
Through the chair, if I can take the report as read, the issue here is associated with the perceived streetscape along Par Road, that has been highlighted by our planning department. They've been looking at the visual amenity under the Resource Management Act for application 2022-54. The planning team is concerned about the visual amenity along Par Road as a result of the Resource Management Act application. And the suggested resolution is that the adjacent landowner improves the planting that they're currently doing within the road reserve to basically screen the development under the Resource Management Act application. Again, this is a license to occupy. It can be removed or revoked at a 1 month notice. The property owner is currently undertaking some landscape planting within that area. So basically what they're doing is enhancing this planting. There's no issues with services at the moment. And this is, again, very much a case of trying to regularize a current situation that's been brought to our attention, but also it will bring benefit to the property owner in that it allows them to comply with the conditions under their resource, or the proposed conditions under the Resource Management Act application.
Question through the chair.
Please.
And so does that attach a fee to it? I see, Ed. So they pay an annual lease? Did I see 150 per annum?
That's the fee for the preparation of the license to occupy.
Oh, okay, got you. So it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this case, we're going for a 6-month notice because of the residual issues associated with the resource management consent. So it's very much a case that if we do revoke it, that brings into question the issues with the applicant's compliance with the resource management consent that need to be resolved.
Yeah, my question, Ed, is on page 33 of the paper, the LPO to be granted for a period of 20 years.
Yes.
So I definitely want to put in brackets subject to.
Absolutely.
And so they know that if we need it, it's 1 month's notice and it's all over.
Exactly.
Isn't that already included?
But I read that the LPO is to be granted for a period of 20 years.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
Yes.
Well, if that's,
Is
if
it
you're granted for 20 years, how do you go and take it off you with 1 month's
But
notice?
haven't they got that, that sort of codicil there that they can be given notice? Is that in?
Yeah, but
6 months.
That's a 6 months in
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
So you're saying if we wanted to access there to put street lights or services under the ground or whatever it may be, this could hamstring us in terms of the 6 months notice. So we would want that to be 1 month notice?
Well, I think it should be consistent because at the end of the day, we have road reserves and other reserves for specific reasons.
And why?
And so, yeah, I understand that these are a bit different than how they're being used. But when you come to manage something, for me, it's much easier to say, if we're happy to give it to you, but if we need it, there's 1 month and you're out.
Yes.
So Ed, is that possible to change that to 1 month?
It's certainly possible. As I said earlier, the reason we've gone for 6 months in this this situation is because of the link to the Resource Management Act, which if we revoke the license to occupy and ask them to remove the landscape planting, that then generates a situation where the council is actually making the conditions of the Resource Management Act unachievable.
Yeah, good point.
So this is where the added complexity comes in. We, under the license to occupy, we still have rights of access to the land. It is still road reserve. If we need to install services or if we need to install street lights, that can be done without any issues. There is no no ability for the landowner to prevent that. But as I said, the period of notice we put here of 6 months is based on the assumption that if we do need to revoke the license to occupy, it is going to add complexity to the Resource Management Act that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
Thank you, Ed. Jeremy, have you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just from clarification. So Ed, what you're saying is the sheds are non-consented and compliant. Is that, or the shed that's certainly on the boundary? Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yes. The shed that's on the boundary is non-consented. The property owner has applied for a retrospective Resource Management Act application for this. The planning department has highlighted that the position of the shed effectively creates a streetscape issue, and that for the amenity of the street, they want to ask for increased landscape planting. The only location for that is within the existing road reserve, which is currently being planted by the property owner, although that is unconsented at the moment. And the license to occupy regularises that planting, allowing the Resource Management Act to be granted and the shed and building to be retained.
But all being at uncompliant still.
That is correct, yeah.
So I'm just wondering why we've got essentially a property or a shed that's in place that's not compliant, not consented, and I guess we're supporting it by allowing them to put the screening up to allow them to keep it in place, right? Is that right?
They've got a resource consent.
No,
No, they haven't.
Let Ed answer.
Oh, okay, got
Let Ed answer, because I think.
Yeah, the shed is currently non-compliant, that is correct. They are trying to apply for a retrospective Resource Management Act application for the shed. Once that is, if that is passed, should we say, then the shed would be approved.
Okay, could I ask one more question then? So if we didn't allow the license to occupy and them to put the screen planting up, would the shed be consented based on the fact that they wouldn't be able to do that?
My understanding is it wouldn't.
Right. So, okay.
Through the chair, there's a comment in the report that says that they may need to investigate other methods of screening. So there may be another way of screening, but if they can't achieve the screening, then yeah. But that would be a detailed planning assessment, and I don't know if we've got a planner on the line.
Thank you. Jeremy, Tony, was that your last question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, go Tony.
Mine was just a general comment. The thing I'd just be aware of is that once this is consented, this shed will go away and a small home will go on there and it will become a rental property. So I'm just very mindful of seeing how many of these things are popping up and the fact that we have never supported infill in the past. And so I just see further down the track is that once this thing's hidden, something else will turn up there, and that wouldn't have been the intention of any decision that was in favour of this resolution. So I didn't raise that thinking ahead. So whether or not it can be somehow linked that, so long as it is that shed and it isn't for accommodation, because that changes the milk and the coconut.
When did the shed go in, Ed? Do we know that?
I'm not aware of the exact date, but we've certainly done research showing it's been there for at least 5 years.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions of Ed before we look at this resolution?
I really want to know that we've linked it to this shed, because if that gets taken out and accommodation goes in, it's a very different discussion.
Is there a process that they would have to go through to turn that into accommodation?
No, we never know.
Yeah, because if they were going to put services to it.
They won't. They don't have to. All the ones around town you look at have no services to them. There's one where I am, there's 4 of them on the one section. Must be dreadful, they all use the services in the house.
Right, I see what you're saying.
But wherever I go, look at these, they're not connected up to our services. They're simply a room with a bed and a TV in them. Well, and a seat probably, but being mindful of these properties, the value of them and how people add value to them, we could actually make a decision.
So how would we manage that, Ed?
Through the chair, there's nothing on roading. There's no roading powers that could be used to manage that. That would be a planning or building control action. Just thinking on Councillor Fox's comments, he's quite correct that if a sleep out or a caravan even was positioned immediately adjacent to the property boundary, there'd be very little that the council could actually do to resist that. A caravan itself would be temporary accommodation. I'm not aware of any powers that roading has to prevent that occurring. A sleep out situation similarly, although that would be accommodation. It's very difficult to actually differentiate between a shed and a sleep out. All it takes is someone to put a bed in there. So yes, I have to say it's a valid point. It's not something that the roading team has got any powers to control. It's something that I would say the planning department would be best suited to give advice on.
So do we need more information?
Yeah, I was going to say, do we just park this and get this information back?
We're not passing it.
Park it.
Yeah.
And just
Sorry.
Through the chair, the third paragraph in the discussion is probably the important one, which talks about the effects that need to be mitigated of the shed and carport located within the front yard, because they're inconsistent with the streetscape. So that paragraph and then the photograph on page 35. Just to be clear, I think the shed that's described is the tool shed, the wood shed, not the larger 10-storey building.
Can see that.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I was just going to say the same point is the shed that we're talking about is the second one. It's still attached to the main garage, right? It's a lower leveled shed.
The little grey stripy one.
Yeah, so
I
I don't know the size of the site, but I imagine it's 600 plus square meters. I mean, why can't that just be relocated and I assume the main garage is compliant? It would be the 1.5 meters, whatever, from the boundary.
But whatever is attached to the main garage is attached to the fence, which is the boundary. So I assume.
But that's what I'm saying. If we move the little shed, the tool shed, essentially, if that's what they're calling it.
Yes.
And they relocate it, they've got a 600. I mean, no different to anyone else that has a section. They can't build up to the boundary.
The thing is that their carport, if you look at the diagrams actually attached, it's right on the boundary.
So the little shed and
Is
then
that?
the lean-to, if you look at the bottom of page 35, there's something attached, physically attached from the building to the fence with a roof.
If I can, through the chair, if you look at the street view on page 35, on the left-hand side is a raised section of fence. That is the carport area. That's something that I believe we don't have any powers to object to because it's an open-ended structure. It's basically just a fence and a roof. The shed is the sort of metal small shed. If you look in the aerial view above, that's the white rectangle.
It's a tin portable shed.
That's correct.
That's what we're
Yeah.
referring to. And the other one
Yeah.
is just a lean-to over the fence, essentially as you
Yeah.
say, an open-ended. So my question is, why can't they just relocate the tin shed? It's a portable shed. And be compliant like most of us else have to be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, we weren't allowed to put a garage up and on the fence line, so what's the difference between a garage and a tin shed that possibly could be right against the fence?
Well, it's obviously it's the visual impact of it that's upsetting the whole the thing here, and Jeremy raises a valid point.
I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, you're the neighbour that's complied with the rules. Why don't they go and put a tin shed up and then apply for licence to occupy? And it's dangerous territory in my view.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm seeing some nodding around the table. So shall we look at these resolutions?
Yeah.
Actually, before we do that, I guess the feeling is that we ask the landowner to deal with moving the shed. So if we would look at the resolutions, we're basically just declining this request.
Yeah.
Yeah?
So I'm just getting a page of the resolution.
Okay, so the resolution is to receive the license to occupy, recommends to council to approve a license to occupy road reserve outside 7 Par Road in Hahei on the following terms. So we would just change that to decline.
Correct.
Is that the feeling around the table?
Yep.
Yes, Jeremy, you would be supportive of that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we would need to remove resolution 3. Declines. Yeah, so change approve to decline. Okay, and take out resolution 3. Okay, that's the new resolution. I guess, do I have a mover, Jeremy?
Yep.
Seconded, Tony, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, carried. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Right, that takes us to 3.3, which is our work program. It's too early for a cup of tea, so we will work you more. Now, I do have apologies from Andrew Bowden, who won't be here to speak to this.
Yep.
But if we do have a conversation, if there's any questions and things, we'll get them to the relevant folk to come back to us with some answers. So looking to the work program, any comments, questions? I have one, and that is around, and I spoke to Heather about this, the hot water beach surf life-saving donations.
We're having, I had a chat with Hayden from Finance yesterday, and we're just going back to the parking meter people again, just to discuss the technology of how best to do it. The best way for council would be if the technology can support literally that the fee for the parking comes to us and the donation, if there is one, goes to someone else. But we don't know if they can split it, so we're just got to ask that technology again. Because I know that they said they could put in the words that say, do you want to donate?
Oh, at point of
parking.
Like at a restaurant, well, would you like to leave a tip?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the easiest, so then the way that would have worked is coming back to us, and they need to be separated out and all that kind of stuff. But we want to ask them if the technology is advanced enough to separate that into 2 bank account streams. We also want to go back to the Hot Water Beach Surf and just also see whether that money, if that can be done, goes directly to Hot Water Beach Surf, or whether it has to go to the surf lifesaving. Because if it has to go to surf lifesaving, that's almost a different scenario, isn't it? Because I don't know whether that's all going to come back or part of it will come back. So that's a slightly different conversation. So I think what we do is, I'll just step back. I've got a contact number for the Teco people. I'm going to ask them to speak to me in small words so I understand how that could work, and we'll see if it's even feasible. And then we'll ask that question as well of where it could go.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you for following up on that.
I said, and so that for me, it can't go direct, if it's possible, which we do,
If it
if it can't go direct to hot water beach surf life saving, then
Yeah,
it ain't happening, because we're not going to do that to support Papamaras, why us?
exactly.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree. I don't see why it couldn't, because
I totally agree, but I would say if something happens because of surf life saving, I would say,
But you just got to look at their overarching structure as well.
Correct.
yeah, absolutely. And I leave that in your very capable hands. It'd be really good to get this tidied up.
Yeah.
Before we head off
I
into,
agree.
Summer season and.
Yeah. as
It's
it
dragging
starts
on.
ramping up. Okay, cool.
But thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Anything else for the, hey, just a comment on the netball courts. We were out there on Saturday with some of the biggest rain coming down. Girls all ran off the court and then came back on to play. Heaps of, still surface water, but fantastic court. Even the team from Thames, they got out of their van and they were just blown away.
Really? That's cool.
So yeah, lots of visiting teams commenting, and the courts are working really, really well. Really well. The bus shelter needs to be bigger though when it's raining.
How many teams can you fit in the bus shelter?
It's like women and children first, and it's like, we're all women and children.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, so that's just, thank you, board, and well done for getting those courts done.
Rebecca, there is one other that I can give you a little bit of a overview of just where I'm at in the process, which is the St. John's, so just land investigation for St. John's.
Oh, cool.
Because essentially we're talking about Moiwa Road. So I've had a conversation with Richard Vedder from St. John's, and he did explain how they work. So the area committee act on behalf of St. John, and their role is to fundraise when required and all that kind of stuff. But he was saying at the moment, there's also a lot of politics and central government funding and all that kind of stuff. And so whilst, a future location that's close to a main highway and traffic route would be the ultimate, they said it's 3 years to just get the project that they're doing at the moment underway. And so basically, they're not even in a position at the moment to work through the central body and all the processes that would be needed. But, they do acknowledge it could be sometime in the future, but if it took 3 years to get to here. But anyway, I did also talk, so it's just something for us to consider. So
Yeah, but I think the thinking behind that was that we earmark in the back of our minds for their growth. It's not that we're going to give them a piece of land tomorrow.
No.
You don't want that land to not be available in
exactly.
5 years' time or 10 years'
So,
time.
I mean, that's part of the future conversations. And so we've already got the concept plan for Sheriff Box, so we'd need to look at that again. But I also, as part of this, have talked with Mike Brown from the Whitianga Free Scouts, just to see, where they're at. And they're really in a hiatus at the moment with the cost of everything is just exponentially growing. So what they originally planned has doubled, quadrupled in cost almost. So they are looking at scaling back what they want to do. They've also at the moment in a bit of a hiatus because of the lack of leaders for the Scouts, but they're going up for a real push as well at the moment to get more
I see that.
people involved. And it's just the things that Scout leaders have to go through now, the police checks and the training and all that people aren't quite so keen. But they're still committed. They're still committed to that site. They're still committed to having the men's shed there. And they're just working through with our staff, Nicole and Thames and our building team on what scaling back would look like and what they'd need to do to go through that.
Did we ever put any caveats of timeframes or anything on that land?
No, they have a lease at the moment, and I forget when that runs out. I didn't check that, but they're still looking at having something there by 2 years.
In 2 years.
By 2 years' time. Men's shed are a little bit the same. Fundraising got halted due to COVID. But they're also looking at a shared like a pollution block for both of them. They're looking at their fundraising options, but again, they're really hit by the fact that costs are escalating. So just they get a cost suddenly, it's what we know from our own projects, they're escalating but they again are totally committed to continuing with their project. They've got someone that's a very experienced builder who built men's sheds in New Zealand and Australia, working on their design. They're getting it ready for estimates and permitting, and yeah, so they're all both still committed to that site, because I was thinking if they were kind of not, there might be an opportunity there. So now that I know that information, then I can start looking at the wider situation on that side. So
I'll just suggest, I look very carefully about scaling back. I mean, so this town will have 40,000 people in it, sooner than most people think. And 40,000 people will mean there's half as many people under the age of 18 here. And so those services for the fire, St John, or whoever it is, and then the people like Scouts and Men's Shed, they'll definitely want more space. So for me, with the St John thing, what Derek said, I'd like to see us ring fence an area, because some of the worthy organisations come along right now with the money and ask to use it, no one else is there, it's not booked, so they get it. And then we find out in 5 years' time, this thing here is no longer fit for purpose, it's too small, and then we do have nowhere to go. So I agree, things are going up, but they're never going to be cheaper either. So
no, I believe that's really.
So I'd rather see us delay it for 2 to 5 years until some more money can be got, and then to build something that's going to be a little bit future-proofed. Otherwise, we can count everything back and nothing can be fit for purpose.
Jeremy?
No, sorry.
Put your hand down there.
But agree totally what everyone's saying.
Right. Thank you, Heather and Tony. Any other comments on the work program?
No, I'm happy.
No, you're happy? Good. Do we need to? Yes, we do. A mover and a seconder for the work program. Move Tony, seconded by Dally. Thank you. All those in favour? Please say aye. Please say aye.
Right.
Thank you. Opposed? None. Carried. Okay. This takes us to not quite 10 o'clock, so we'll keep going. The transfer station update. Is Ellen here? Or?
Yeah, she is.
Hello? Oh, she's somewhere glamorous and sunny.
Miami, you know. Lovely sunny background compared to our weather.
Welcome. Thank you for stepping in.
No problem. Obviously just stepping in on behalf of Andrew to cover off the report for the new transfer station. I'll just go over a few of the key points that he's mentioned in the report, just in relation to the design and layout of the site. So we've got the main access for the public is going to be from Abrahamson Drive. And that's going to be an entrance and exit point. There's when you enter the site, there's quite a long driveway along to the first stop, which is the recycling station. Essentially, we're really just trying to queue those peak period traffic queues off Moai Road and onto the site itself, because there was the space there to do that. Once the customers arrive at the recycling station area, if they have no other materials to dispose of, they are able to then actually exit onto Moai Road, so they don't have to continue through the rest of the site. The next location for them is actually going to be the drop-off for the recovery centre, should they have any items to drop off there, before they approach the weighbridge, if they've got any materials, for example, refuse, green waste, hazardous materials, tyres and whatnot. It's a one-way traffic management plan. So once they have disposed of their waste material or recycling materials, they can then go over the exit weighbridge and exit back onto Abrahamson Road. If they do need to go around the site again, as you know, as with the current site and our other transfer station sites, if you've got more than, you know, one kind of chargeable material, you do actually have to go around twice or however many times you need to. And they can actually just kind of, once they've gone over the exit weighbridge, they can actually just cut back across to the entrance driveway and go around again. Yeah, so the site will have 2 weighbridges. We will have a what we'd refer to as like an unmanned kiosk, essentially. So the system, the weighbridge software system, there'll be a vehicle plate recognition system. So it's like a touch screen operation that when the customer arrives at the weighbridge, it'll pick up the number plate. It'll say, look, we've got this as your number plate, and what are you here to dispose of? And you know, select on the screen whichever it may be. If they've got an account, it'll come up saying, you know, this is the account we've got registered to your license plate. And is this correct? So it's a really kind of user-friendly touchscreen system. It does obviously mean that there's no one sitting in, you know, a weighbridge kiosk as such, but the purpose of that is for them to actually be out on the floor and around the site, actually assisting the customers as they move through the site. Yeah. It is a PayWave kind of system, so when they select the waste type that they're there for, they'll wave their EFTPOS card, PayWave card in front of that screen. And then when they've finished their transaction and exiting the site, it'll actually come up again saying, hey, look, we're just checking this is the registration number we've got. You've ticked off, you know, refuse. This is the weight that you've disposed of, and please confirm that you're happy to proceed. There's also barrier arms at each weighbridge location, so they won't actually be able to move forward until they've completed that touchscreen application. Yeah. Just moving through into the notes regarding the Resource Recovery Centre. So they have submitted a business plan that is going to council on the 28th of June. And the initial stages of that operation will be to, and what's proposed is for them to collect, sort, recover C&D waste materials. So C&D being construction and demolition waste materials. So that's a really great opportunity to divert those, you know, possibly reusable materials from landfill, which is fantastic. And there is obviously some funding going towards that as part of the project. But ultimately the cost of constructing and operating that site will be borne by the Mercury Bay Resource Recovery Centre Trust. Yeah. Anyone's got any questions regarding the update that I can help with, or that I can try and help with?
Thanks, you're doing great. Jelly.
I'm just wondering, I suppose it's a little bit like when you're at the self-checkout at the supermarket and you've got limes in there, $30 a kilo, and you charge them as lemons, not that I ever do that. Is there an opportunity with this sort of level of trust that people can defraud what material they're actually dropping off and paying for?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And we have actually discussed that with the software supplier as well. So there will be measures in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And there will be staff across the site as well, managing, like reviewing what essentially someone said at the touch screen versus where that vehicle ends up. And that's what's so fantastic about the number plate recognition as well, so that the staff can actually check that whilst on site as well. But yeah, I mean, you certainly don't want someone turning up saying I'm not, you know, doing green waste because it's slightly cheaper than refuse or whatnot. It's also a software system that it's from a company called A-Trax, and the software system itself is called Waytrax, and it's being installed at all new transfer stations throughout New Zealand. So it's actually quite,
Fantastic.
it's a fantastic system. And we've actually visited, transfer station site where it's being used, and it's a very user-friendly, simple system. There's also, for those that may need to use it, there is like a button on the system that says, do you need assistance? And if you press that button, it will actually bring a staff member over to you, or it will ring through to their like mobile, and you can talk to them through there. So, and it does work. I did have to use that myself when at a site when I did something wrong. So, so it is a good system to have in place, and it just provides for that extra support to the customer, so they're not like stuck at the weighbridge going, oh, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Sounds awesome,
Thank
Anna.
you.
So do those roaming staff have an iPad or something, like a little device?
Yeah, that's what we're talking to the software provider about what we can essentially set up for them, and what would be the most, I suppose, efficient for the staff on site as well, like whether it be an iPad potentially, or whether it be a mobile phone, or how we're just kind of working through that with them, the logistics of what we can do there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anna.
Any other questions? No?
Sounds good.
Really, thank you for the update. It's fantastic.
No problem. Thanks so much.
We're super excited for the grand opening.
Yeah. So am I.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, isn't
Bye. Okay, how are we all feeling? Does anyone want morning tea, cup of tea? Oh, sorry, I didn't do that. Can I have a mover and
I'll
seconder?
move.
Receive the report, Kelly, seconded by Bill. All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
None, carried. Okay, how are we feeling? Cup of tea?
Keep going.
I'm fine.
Keep going,
Yeah.
pressing on. Okay, so this is taking us to item 4.1, which is our licensed commercial operators on page 52. I need to find it here. 52. Should have Garrett.
License. Commercial operators, is that the one? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a little bit, if you've got the initial pay order paper, it's at the very back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to change.
4.1.
On Derek, because he will run a little bit.
Oh, we're running very big ahead of schedule.
Here we are.
Well, if we need to, we could jump to the action schedule and then jump back. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you, Alistair.
Should we do that? Should we just, sorry, take a break there, and we'll go to page 57, item 4.2, which is our action schedule. Just while we're waiting for Derek to arrive. Any comments, discussion points?
Hold on, I'm just trying to get to the right page.
Oh, sorry. 57. So there's probably a couple of things that will end up coming off here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got the transfer station update.
Yep.
And so is there some comms planned around?
I think that's why you're having a photo of.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Just on that, when the comms plan goes out, so I spoke with Rayna about this today, so things came out. And the first thing was to stop queues at traffic, and I thought, no, that's not right. The first thing is to be more efficient with how we manage waste and how we improve the environment.
Yes, I agree.
The last thing about all this is, and as a result of all of that, and what we've heard about today, we'll be able to manage traffic better as well. So rather than being queued up on Moeoi Road, blocking the entrances to houses and businesses, we'll overcome that. So I would personally like to see what goes out, because what I was given as my brief today isn't what I spoke about, because it's about. So my comment is, as a practitioner, or someone that's actually involved in this in a community sense, I guess I'm a bit more attached to it than someone trying to write a press release. But
that's always been our primary.
But yeah, for me, this whole thing is about us doing better in the environment.
Yeah.
and making better use of recoverable resources
Yes.
and putting less to landfill. And we're going to be using technology so people are interfacing with people and not worrying about the carbon because a computer will do that. And then at the very end of all that, and it'll be easier for people getting in and out of it because we won't have traffic jams. So I just think, for me, when the messaging goes out, that we actually get it in the right sequence. Because most people, especially like me, they read the headline, and if they're interested, they keep reading. If they're not interested, they just keep it. So that'd be my comment about when we go out with the media.
Mm-hmm.
We've had workshops around this where we've stated how clearly it is an environmental issue. And of course, we have to address the road, what's the word I was going to say, carnage?
The congestion.
The congestion, thank you. I knew it was a C word. But we do have to emphasise the fact that we have sat here and passionately spoken about the environment as being our driving force behind this.
Yeah.
So I agree, Tony, totally.
Okay. So, and also, everyone's coming for the photo this afternoon?
Is it in the afternoon?
No, after this.
Oh, after this. If it's after this, yes, I can.
Only if you're available.
Depends what time it is.
Okay, so
Soon.
we keep carrying on. Right, the only other thing that I had a comment on the action schedule was, I see the statement went out in the council newsletter, weekly email newsletter around the Otama trees. Is this going to the landowners as well, the ratepayers out there, and is this going to be in the paper? Because it was actually reported in the paper initially that we endorsed the work.
Have we got Derek online yet? Derek may be able to speak to that.
Okay, is Derek here? Hi, Derek. I don't know if you've heard any of that last part of our conversation. No, he's gone. He does not want to talk to us.
He's running away from
Can we
that
get an
question.
answer to that? Just exactly, oh,
Oh, he's back.
look who's back.
Are you there, Derek?
Yes, I am, but I am having some very technical difficulties. Everything keeps freezing and audio keeps dropping.
Oh.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off. That might actually help. But sorry, I've dropped out about 3 times. Was there a question posed at me?
Yeah.
We just skipped ahead to our action schedule while we're waiting for you to come online, and the second to last item is around an update on the Otama trees. We were just saying how I see there was a statement that was issued in the council weekly update email newsletter, and just clarifying, will that statement also be sent to the land owners, the ratepayers of Otama? And was it going to be issued to the informer? Because sort of that's where this all came about. Initially, the article stated that the work was endorsed by TCDC and DOC.
So the weekly press release is picked up by the papers. There is also 2 letters that are to be sent out as well. One to a group of residents who have written to us, and the second to the Otama Reserves group as well.
Yes. Can I say something?
Yes.
My concern is around when things are picked up by the papers, that we lose some of the control over the content of that, unless they're just repeating verbatim a statement, and it doesn't necessarily give, for example, the chair to make any personal comment in that. Anyone like to comment on that?
That's sort of the sentiment I knew in terms of, was it going to go directly to the paper?
Maybe Derek couldn't hear that.
No, I did hear that, but that was a comment. I mean, the comms group probably needs to comment on this rather than myself. That's the direction that I've been given.
Okay. All right, we'll try and catch Lorna after this.
Maybe, but before it goes out, it goes past you, Rebecca, to make sure
Well,
that,
I'd asked to see it.
that you're happy, that it says what it needs to say. That's all I'm saying, because
Yeah.
otherwise, what Gary said is right. There's a
I
chance
st-
to water it down.
I still feel like we've got a bit of egg on our face and that hasn't been quite
I
addressed.
agree,
I think lots of you.
I agree.
Okay, we'll catch up with Lorna and see if we can, what's going to happen in that space. Anything else for the action schedule?
No.
Can I have a mover and seconder to the action schedule, please?
I agree.
Thank you, Tony, seconded by Jeremy. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so that takes us back to
Page 52.
page 52, which is the licensed commercial operators. And
Okay.
welcome again, Derek.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background for the board. So the applications had been run under the weighted tender model as approved by council, and we went through a process with choosing sites, etc., which I'm sure the board remembers. But during the recent deliberations process for the annual plan, the council decided not to proceed with the with the weighted tender model, but to go back to the old way of issuing licenses and for officers to carry on with and do more work regarding how we issue our licenses to be ready for the next annual plan. So we reverted back to our existing license process. That caused a couple of minor issues, which I'm just going to walk you through, because we received some applications from previously unknown operators. And you can see that in the paper. We received one from Whitianga Skate School to operate at Taylor's Mistake. And our recommendation there is that because there's no current commercial operators who utilise the skate park, that we approve this licence request. We also received a request from the ice cream team for Purangi Reserve, and because of the work that we'd already done in that area, we're recommending not to approve that licence because of the capacity issues at Purangi. We also received an application for a scooter operation at Buffalo Beach Esplanade Reserve, and it's a similar reason we're requesting or suggesting to decline that application due to the capacity issues already at that reserve. There was also another minor twist as well, is that we had an already issued license to 97 Limited. They currently operate at Buffalo Beach Reserve. They were asking to swap their location to Hotwater Beach to Purangi Reserve, the domain car park, not to continue operating at Buffalo Beach, but to move entirely. So because there's no food application, or no food operator at Purangi Reserve, we're recommending to the board that change be approved. However, there were also a number of operators in the recent application period who applied for additional sites alongside their sites that they currently occupy. So because we're rolling over our licenses, we're suggesting that these requests not be approved, but be declined for this license period. And then obviously we go through the process in a year's time with a more definitive way of issuing our licenses. So summary, there's a very long resolution there, and each resolution needs to stand by itself, so that's why it's quite wordy, and apologies for that, but that's how we've ended up with that sort of quite wordy resolution. And there's an attachment to the paper which has the commercial operators, their location and their activity type as well. Is that relatively clear, or as clear as it can be at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty
Thank
clear.
you. It's very clear. Thank you. We've got a question here for you, Kūaotunu.
Well, I was going to move the resolution so I can talk to it.
Okay, all right. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the resolution?
I'll move it.
Tony, Deli and Tony, thank you. All right.
So I'd just like to make two comments. I'm sure Jeremy might add some of this. So I'm very mindful that at council, this is deferred. That it's deferred to make sure we get it right. But I do feel for the people, and there's a number of them, who went to considerable effort to put their best foot forward, only to find out that it's been deferred. So I don't know if there's some way that we can go back to those people to say, thanks for your effort. It's not wasted. In fact, it'll contribute to maybe a better outcome. My next comment is that 80% of these reserve activities are in Mercury Bay. So I only ask that when we refocus ourselves on it, that we perhaps utilise people within the Mercury Bay Community Board that have been around this for a fair bit of time, and again have the people that sell it to our community to be intimately involved in the discussions going forward. Because as I see it, the issue is broken down because the elected arm have not been really very close to the discussions or the decision making. And so some key people have been in, some haven't been in. And we haven't really understood what is it we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get a district-wide solution, and maybe it's not going to be possible. But so those are my comments. The people that contributed significantly, somehow I'd like to recognise their efforts and don't lose them. And when we get this stuff back on the table, that we involve the political arm with the staff and in time the users, the key users, and get into the solution. Because if we work in silos, we aren't getting there.
Well,
So those are my comments.
yeah, thank you. And maybe we ask if we can, workshop that here with staff, prior to us all heading out the door in September.
I agree, because this is not a half a day work.
Yeah,
This could take
tidied up.
This could take a week of work, not 40 hours in 1 week. It might be half a day today, half a day in a week's time, half a day in a month's time, might be a full day 3 weeks later. But this, what we're trying to, like 80% of the reserves are in Mercury Bay, 80% of these things are involved in Mercury Bay. So Mercury Bay need to be front and centre in the discussion. And it needs to be in this room, and it needs to be initially, I think, the staff and the elected arm to say what is it we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And once we get ourselves on the same page, now who are the players that we need to bring in to get them on board? Because otherwise, for me, you just can the lot and just say there's none. They're all going to tender. And we're going to tell you, if you want to be on the wharf, it's $30,000 a year to start, if that is the number. Because I tell you, we'll sell space on the wharf tomorrow morning at $30,000 a year. So all I think it's a bigger discussion that must involve more people, and not so we're going to get away with a half-day workshop, because frankly, you won't get there.
I completely support what you're saying, and I think we should look at how we can make that happen starting sooner rather than later, and get this tidied up and not let it be a mad dash as we lead into the annual plan again. Make sure that we are completely comfortable.
I agree.
Over the coming months, just do the work, offer our time, and I'd also like to sit down with a couple of the commercial operators as well and have a conversation with them about, have we got this right? And I really support your comment about sort of going back and really thanking those that did do the hard work to get their submission together or their application together for this new tender process, because that must have been extremely frustrating. But just urge them to bear with us. we're trying to get this right, you know, for everyone.
So can I ask a question? You know, what you were talking about, Tony, is that number 4 on the resolutions, is that the ice cream team in Ferry scooters? The ones that are being declined and being asked to reapply?
No, I think the ice cream team is because Purangi, they're asking for Purangi and Purangi is full.
Yeah.
That is like our prime
okay.
location, and the same for the Esplanade where we've got the jet ski people and we've got the banana boat and things like that.
Yeah, but I'm just looking for the new applicants that Tony's acknowledging have put a lot of work in.
Oh, they're not here.
Okay.
No, they won't, they will be, so these people, these commercial operators, I'm assuming all of them would have gone through the process to put their new application in under the weighted tender process.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which is just, which is a change in the way that we've operated in the past.
Yeah.
And it would have been stressful. It's new, and I think all of them got their work together, and it's just a shame that we haven't been able to, because they were also, remember, they were looking for a tenure of time as well.
Yes.
And now we're rolling this over for a year. So, you know, I endorse everything that you've said, and I just hope that we can do this sooner, but start this sooner rather than later.
Well, I can only, so I support the resolution. So, and I think what in council, like the work that Derek and his team have done, there now is a significant body of work in council that doesn't have to be repeated. It's how do we refine that and get this thing over the line.
I think we're going to have to front foot the frustration that these people.
I think the frustration's already there. Came in May.
Well, I mean, we have to meet that head on because there's going to be quite a few quite annoyed people that they went through that process.
I take a ball use to the record though. So whilst I support that the resolution in all parts, how do we go forward? And I think you're right, because October is very, very close. And a lot of this institutional knowledge will not be here. And, it's a pretty major bit of work for a whole new team to grapple with, so.
Absolutely. And, you'll have a new team coming, meeting for the first time in October, maybe a November meeting, then it'll go very, very quiet. You'll be back to annual plan before you even know
And
it.
the new council,
Exactly.
Like they'll rabbits on the headlights when that happens.
Yeah, and so they'll only just be finding their feet, and then it'll be back to annual plan where hopefully this will get tidied up and signed off. So how do we put in another resolution that sort of suggests or asks that the board have offered or would like some time with staff, or would like to get this tidied up prior to October? How do we best do that?
Come in action from discussions this morning.
So that's
the action will fall out of that action.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I'm
happy with that.
Jeremy, did you have anything to add?
No, I think I'll cover it. I think. What's that? Sorry.
Very dark.
It's getting very dark where you are.
Or you've got a very, very heavy tan.
We're not laughing.
I think I'll cover it in my members report.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so sorry, we should probably touch base with Derek. You kind of caught all of that, Derek?
Yes, and through the chair, at the deliberations meeting, exactly what Councillor Fox was talking about was reiterated, and there's an instruction to the CEO to carry out the processes and the actions which you've highlighted.
Okay, thank you. So do we want to move these suggested resolutions in one lot? We don't need to go through them independently. Is everybody comfortable with them?
I am.
I am.
Yep.
Okay, and number 6 is gone, I'm guessing. Yes, all right. So we have a mover and a seconder. Who was it? Delhi?
I moved.
Delhi and Tony. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
So we've done that. We've done our action schedule. So that now takes us to our members' reports. Who would like to start the ball rolling? Which way? Let's go this way.
I've got notes to self. When you're a certain age, you forget what you're going to say. Just reporting that boat ramp users in Mercury Bay North are very unhappy with the number of potholes on their boat ramps. clear parking areas, like I've seen some photos online that are very, very pothole that you could lose a small vehicle in.
Area is that?
Mercury Bay North, so they were talking about
Purangi, Kūaotunu.
Kūaotunu, not sure about Matarangi. I'll have to go back and check all the photos. It was just something I picked up. Lovely to get the photos and feedback from the Kūaotunu Environmental Action Group, because I walk that track and they're doing some wonderful stuff with their money and their trapping. Also another bouquet of flowers to staff for that graffiti. I just want to publicly acknowledge that they got onto the graffiti at Brophy's Beach in exceptional time.
Didn't even
At the toilet block there.
Yeah.
Great big tag, and it was gone, I think, less than a week. It was just
Right.
brilliant. And that I also was wandering along the Hoggan Path, Buffalo Beach at the holiday weekend and sent photos through to staff, and it was lovely. Staff responded very quickly to my photos of vandalism, and it was generally things like dog poo bags, and people had taken an extraordinary effort to kick over planting signs and actually break the stakes that signage was on, and it was sort of from Tapu Tapuatia right the way through to continuing here. It was super disappointing, but the staff were great and they were requesting details and whereabouts it was really quickly. So that's me.
Thank you, Delly. Tony?
Well, mine is really just to make sure that we pick up on what Bill and Alistair presented, to make sure it does get into Bruce Hinson's team.
Yep.
And that we do make sure we've got something in our annual planning for this. I'm not too sure what is in there for budget for boat ramps and stuff. And I don't know where the rocks from the marina are gone or going. I know some of them stacked out of Moai, but maybe there's a place out there that some of these could be stockpiled around where the car park is now, that doesn't get in the way of the car park, to be used. So I just think it's worthy to have these lay views. And mine is the question is Arlington House. So I know it's still there, and I'd be keen to know. For me, I think the time has come where we tell the guy that bought it and has taken it, you have 48 hours or there's a penalty. We need to fix it. This has been a year of procrastination and lost revenue. And frankly, it's embarrassing to be somebody who supported buying it, to get rid of it, in fact, to knock it over or get rid of it, to use it for overflow car parking, to find out that it is still there. So what I want to know, I should say in 7 days' time, I want to know when it's going, and it better be going pretty quick, because otherwise I'll burst at the print. I don't believe, like it's just beyond me that we can't execute something like that, unless it's something I don't know, but I can't think of a reason why that building is there. I understood it, can't tow it over the Kopahikai in peak time. I understand that. But it isn't Easter at the moment.
And it will be summer and we'll be back to reduced hours before we know it. So yes,
That's what's going to happen. So I don't expect to see that thing there at the end of the month, put it that way.
It needs to be a priority.
So that's enough out of me.
Thank you.
Quite one for me. I've been involved with various other things, but one thing that's starting to really annoy me is the damage that's been done down Joan Gaskell with the traffic coming from 100%, etc.
Agreed.
They are just absolutely making a swamp there. And if it's too wet, people are driving further down on the grass to make the swamp even larger.
Wider.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if there could be something done about that, because it really is quite dangerous.
I know we had flagged this when that gym and that sort of first opened, and I can't remember what the
Outcome was.
yeah.
So
I don't
there
know.
was going to be
is this where they cross the Birmingham?
yeah to get in
Directly, you know, the direct exit from all those.
And it just makes the road incredibly muddy, doesn't it?
Well, that's dangerous.
I just think we should be bollard again.
Bollard and plant.
Yeah.
So it's plants with something hardened behind them.
Then they just move further up.
But the whole thing is, so you have to go on the tar seal.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. It is that is just idleness and tiredness and they'll take the piss.
And it's our entranceway, really. I
It
mean,
totally
sadly,
is.
it's a big box retail entranceway, which is not
Yep.
the nicest, but it could be
Well,
enhanced.
there's more
you get
development
budget.
going on there and that problem will not go away.
Let us
No,
capture
I
that on
agree
our
with
action
you.
schedule for how we,
Yeah, we're looking
I
for that.
agree
We'll
with
look
you,
for that for you.
I do.
yeah,
Good.
let's grab that on our action schedule.
Lazy buggers.
Apart from that, I'm done.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Obviously, the commercial concession we discussed in detail, but I've firsthand spoken to a number of them, and the frustration is high. I think, understandably, a lot of people put a lot of work and energy and stress into the process, because obviously the carrot at the end of it was quite different to what it is now. So I don't think council have done themselves any favours. I think, I've even had to comment where, we've been talking about changing this process for more than 10 years, and this is just another year that we haven't done it and made any progress forward. And I personally feel this is one example of many that we just don't make steps forward. We just procrastinate on a lot of stuff. And I certainly am very frustrated with a lot of the processes and how long they take. And I sort of reiterate what Tony said in the fact that this process has to cover a very diverse group of companies, big, small, seasonal. So I think it is now another opportunity to get it right, but it really needs a lot of energy and that put into it. And like someone said earlier, we have got the lion's share of concessions and probably always will. So that's enough on that. The Mercury Bay cycle strategy, obviously there's two options from the last community board meeting out for public consultation. I think option 1 and 2. I'm currently in Europe at the moment and have been quite interested looking at how cycle paths and pedestrian paths work. And from my observations, Europe has got very much the mindset that it's shared access between pedestrian and cycleways, and dual carriages on the same path as such. So, you pass, rather than separating it for the example that we have it going out to consultation, where you separate it by the road width, you're actually working, there's just, they're side by side. So I look at that approach and say it is a lot more sustainable and realistic to actually achieve something. And maybe that's, obviously it'll go out for public conversation. Maybe it's a mindset change. I know from this conversations that I was involved in from a staff perspective that we very much need to differentiate between cyclists and pedestrians, but maybe there's an opportunity that they, especially when you're talking about low levels of traffic where you share it, because there is a huge substantial cost saving there. And certainly, as I said in my observations here, in very busy areas and high utilised paths, that it works really well. And people are just respectful of each other. So, as a town, I know there's a lot of people that want to push on the cycleway through the town, but fundamentally we do need to get that part right. We can't sort of have it ad hoc where we start it's separated between cyclists and pedestrians and then adapt it the other way further on. So that's all from me.
Cool, thanks, Jeremy. Grab some photos of these shared.
I actually have got a whole bunch of, taken a whole bunch of photos, including how it crosses roads and the signage they will use. So maybe I should put an email to share it, but I have got a number of photos to show it.
Cool.
And the other one is they are a lot narrower. I know we're talking about the sort of 3 meters. These are generally between 1.8 and 2 meters wide. So when you start concreting, it's a big number and of saving. So anyway, it's not my specialty, but it's just an observation.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jeremy, perhaps that would be a really good workshop item when you're back in the country.
Yeah,
I would love to have that conversation, actually get the photos up on the screen, would be fantastic.
yeah, I'll share, in the meantime, I will share the photos, just so you
Yeah.
can think about it. I can get more.
Please do.
Is that it for you, Jeremy?
Sure is.
Thank you. Just really quickly from me, went up to Wharikaho, to the marae, to this Kalurpa in pest seaweed hui, which was attended by folks from the barrier as well as MPI, TCDC, and obviously iwi, and it was extremely eye-opening, very interesting, and you know, we're going to have to perhaps have a change of the way we enjoy our summertime hobbies and things, I think, in order to keep this in hand at Ahu Great Mercury Island. But more on that to come, and I understand they're going to come and speak to us in public forum, after public forum at our next meeting, and them I mean MPI. I just want to touch base on the ridiculous amount of vandalism, wheelies, broken street signs, ripped out plants, broken tree branches, graffiti at the sports park, some of which was absolutely disgusting. And I think it is time. I know that when I first came onto the board, we talked about it. I would certainly like to float the idea of having some cameras at our main roundabout into town, and also maybe at the second bridge, in terms of capturing traffic sort of behaviour. But the lengths that someone has gone to remove the massive Veneta Drive bollard, which is the actual street name in the middle there, is like, it's ridiculous.
It must have taken them time.
Damaged vehicles, all sorts of things. I mean, we really, you know, it's not good enough. And I would really like to, and maybe this is a workshop conversation we need to have, but we need to talk about some more security surveillance sort of stuff.
There's been a huge amount of damage as you go to the mail station. Look on the right, the entrance.
Right outside the Waste Office there.
Absolute bedlam.
Yeah.
Of the grass there.
And the roundabouts and things, and again, you know, some planting on the roundabout. I don't know whether there are rules around what you can have on roundabouts and things like that in terms of hard structures, but there's no signage there. There's no directional signage left. Everything's been knocked over. So I just would like us to have a conversation again and visit this. Would
you like to do a press release where you actually also encourage, because I can't believe that nobody has seen vehicles without threatening their own well-being or safety, but getting some information and being encouraged to bring that information forward.
I think part of it is we live in double, sort of triple glazed houses, and it's late at night with your house shut up in winter. You probably don't even know that it's happening. But yes, I mean, that's something we can talk about as part of this conversation.
Community engaged.
I totally agree with you. Like, I'd say defer all the community grant money into cameras, because everyone will benefit from that. And if we've got to find some other money, we need to do that. Having a discussion with the police, to me, is almost not worth your breath. But somehow I think we need them in a room, and we need that then reported through our mainstream media, that we as a community are not happy about it, and we need a police response, and we need our own response. And what we're considering doing, and gave some community support for some expenditure for cameras. So it is appalling to think that people want to treat our town like this. And for the, you know, it's not a private money. People say those signs are put here, and that, you know, that's waterways money. It's not ratepayer money.
That's correct.
But we have to fix it. It is ratepayer money, but it's ratepayer money that fixes all the bloody vandalism up with bloody lightweights and bloody bombs, driving around grass verges and stuff. I just think it's worthy of some police. I don't know whether they get the police in here to say, well, we're going to have a release, and it'll be vociferous. So where do you stand, and what advice can you give us? Because we're sitting here and do it, school holidays next and Christmas holidays. It always needs to be when there's holiday times.
Exactly.
Like, it's happening other times, but what happens at Purangi and those
It
places?
peaks, doesn't it?
Oh, what's happening at Purangi and the damage there to the barbecues?
I agree. So you take what we're doing for the community, and these tow rags will cut up and rip it all up. Like, it's just not right. And especially when you see those barbecues, how many families who use those. So, like, that's someone else with their big flash house could have 100 people in there and have it catered. These people haven't got that, but they can go and have 50 of them sitting around a barbecue with their sausages.
At the beach.
And have a great time at the beach with their kids and stuff. And we've got some people in the community who take that away from them. It's not right.
No.
And I think we've got an obligation to catch them. And when we catch them, to publicly do it on the wharf. Someone surreptitiously stick it on Facebook so their faces are everywhere. So I'm past the PC. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't want to hurt them, all right? Then hurt them.
Well, I'd like us to have a conversation, and you raise a really good point. Do we put community grants to CCTV? Is that where the money goes?
Well,
let's have this conversation, and do we need
that's
to
what I would
get an application together and make that happen?
That's what I would do.
What's the process?
Support that.
To bring it to another meeting?
This is something that we need to discuss offline. It's not part of the members' report
Okay,
to discuss
that's what I was thinking.
changing a community grant fund.
Yeah.
This is just ideas.
Yep.
Okay, but yes, let's get this onto our action schedule. How do we make CCTV happen? And the vandalism is out of control.
Well, it's uncontrolled, not out of control. Yes.
Yes. All right, may I please have a mover and a seconder for members' reports? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Bill.
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, carried. Thank you. So that now, and also just so the public knows, we were able to take our masks off. We didn't just all randomly decide to do it because there are no members of the public left in the room. So just so you're aware.
Good point, Chair.
I can breathe.
I now would like to move to public excluded. May I have a mover and a seconder? Move Tony, seconded by Dally. All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Thank you. Stay there, Jeremy.
Bear with.